Hi there, I'm Jen, this is Remembered Reads, and this is going to be a bit of a theoretical TBR for the Read the Middle East readathon that is going on over the next week. This readathon was created by Jen from Book Syrup. I will link to one of her announcement videos below. I think it was in her country by country recommendation list. She talked about kind of the fluidity of the borders that one could use to define the region, which I appreciated because if you watch any of the videos where I talk about demographic stuff, I always like to talk about the it's complicated zone, and she talks about why she picked the greater Middle East as opposed to the narrower. So she's using a very generous definition in terms of the number of countries involved, is what I'm trying to say. In any case, I'm calling this a theoretical TBR because my sister and her family are coming to visit over the week, which means that instead of spending a lot of time reading, or even spending my normal amount of time reading, I'm going to be doing family stuff. I'll be at Niagara Falls and the zoo and the usual cheesiness. So I probably won't read most of these, but I thought it would be fun to share the books that I have out of the library and some books that I own but haven't read that would qualify for this readathon, and that if I had more time, I would be reading. So I'll start with some books that I had out of the library. The first one here that I picked up off of the random Canadian bookshelf at my library is Divided Loyalties by Nilofar Shidmehr. This is a series of stories that are set some in Iran and some in Canada, starting in 1978, which is the year before the revolution in Iran, and then moving forward in time and in geography and whatnot. I believe the stories in here all focus on female characters. Another thing that I ended up retaking out of the library was a book that I talked about when I did one of these for the Asian readathon last month, and I didn't have time to get to that. But this is Kamal Al-Solaylee's Brown. He used to be an arts critic at the Globe and Mail. I think he's a university professor these days. The subheading on this one is What Being Brown Means in the World Today to Everyone, and is, I think, a bit of pop sociology, basically. Anyway, he's originally from Yemen. I don't think this is exclusively a Middle Eastern framing, but it certainly is in part. Will I have to take this out a third time, or will I get to this? That'll be the question. A book that I just got in the mail today is the fourth volume of The Arab of the Future, or L'Arabe du Futur. This is Riad Sattouf's series of graphic memoirs about his childhood, which uses different colors for different countries. The pink bits are in Syria, the blue bits are in France. I don't believe that the English translation of this one is out yet, but the first 3 volumes are available in English and a pile of other languages. This one is quite a bit longer than the other 3 were, so yeah, I'm looking forward to getting to this. Next up I have Selma Dabbagh's Out of It. This is basically about a Palestinian family, some of whom moved to London and some of whom I believe work in the Gulf. And according to the back, is about family secrets, unlikely love stories, and unburied tragedies. I'm not actually sure where I bought this, so... So next up is one that I think is probably going to be somewhat depressing. This is Black Milk by Elif Shafak. This is in part, I think, a postpartum depression memoir, although I believe it's also getting into the pressures of being a high-profile female writer. The subheading on this is On the Conflicting Demands of Writing, Creativity, and Motherhood. The back cover copy says, Searingly honest, eloquent, and unexpectedly humorous. Next up is a book that is so short that I am sure I will read it, and that is The Apartment in Bab El-Louk. This is described as a noir poem / graphic novel, which should be interesting. I'm always fascinated when something that's this non-standard ends up being translated. So that's kind of, I'm gonna say neat. That's not the best word. It's neat. I think the Read Around the World book club is reading this either this month or next month, and I'm always way behind on the books that they're reading, so maybe I will get to this since it's nice and short, and I'll actually be on topic for that one of these days. Next up is a book that I got for 27 cents at a used bookstore in Vietnam when I was on vacation in January. This is Rabih Alameddine's Les Vies de Papier, but this was written in English, and the English title is An Unnecessary Woman, so that's a very non-literal title. It's about a 72-year-old Lebanese woman who meditates on life with her and her relationship to writing, I think. I've read about the first 10 pages of this because I started reading it when I was on vacation and then decided to just stick to reading ebooks on vacation and not carry this around with me. The author, I believe he was born in Jordan, but I think he grew up in Lebanon, if I'm not mistaken. Next up is a book that I got during the Boxing Day sale at Book Outlet. This is Where Pigeons Don't Fly by Yousel Al-Mohaimeed. This is funny, I was looking at the reviews of this on Goodreads, and the reviews, this was translated from Arabic, and the reviews that are in Arabic are really low. Like, this is not well reviewed. And I thought, why does a poorly reviewed book get a translation? That just seems bizarre. So this is about a Saudi man who is moping about the fact that he was unable to have successful illicit love affairs, I think, which doesn't sound particularly interesting, but I'm kind of curious because this is so poorly reviewed, and normally you don't see translations of books that are poorly received, so I'm fascinated by that. Next up, I have another book that is by the same publisher, who I think are just putting out a lot of translations of books by Saudi authors. This is Days of Ignorance by Laila Aljohani. This is, I believe, about a woman who successfully has a love affair, but her family either murders or beats up her secret lover. Yes, he doesn't get murdered because it says she's waiting at his bedside. Anyway, this is a short one, so that also sounds depressing, so we'll see how that goes. And finally, this is The Walking by Laila Khedivi. This, I believe, is the second book in a trilogy about a Kurdish family from Iran. I have not read the first book in the series, but I am a big fan of reading series out of order, so we'll see what happens. I think in this one, a member of the family that this is about has moved to the United States, so. Alright, so those are the books that I would be reading if I had enough time to read a bunch of books this week. We will see how many I actually get through. If you're taking part in this readathon, I would love to hear what you're reading. And if you've read any of these, I would love to hear what you think of them. That's it for now. Ciao.